Hello and welcome to the DFS underscore PhD show for today, the 19th of October. Remember, you're good enough, you're strong enough, and gosh darn it, somebody's got to win that money. And hey, the Sims are crazy, guys. I added a Madden Sims channel to the Discord because I win it a lot at it. I get a lot of questions about it. And also I just wanted a place to put this ridiculous lineup. So this happened yesterday while I was at the pool or whatever. I came back to the car. I was like, okay, cool, $100 or whatever. And then I looked at the particulars, and I just want to read them because Mac Jones in real life is never going to have this kind of day. And it's just fun to live in this sim reality. Mac Jones, 449 passing yards, 7 passing touchdowns, 4 of which went to Hunter Henry for 158 yards on 13 receptions. We additionally had 2 of them. Wait, no, that's Parker. Yeah, 2 of them to Parker. So the only one I missed was the very last touchdown of the game, a crazy long touchdown to Aguilar, because everybody had to catch a touchdown from Mac that day. But anyway, so the Sims are fun, and they're a good example of what's going on when people run actual Sims, right? Because there is a chance that some stupid thing happens a lot in the Sims. And if you happen to have a New England-Pittsburgh stack, which yeah, not a lot of people had the New England-Pittsburgh stack. The other 2 games were Minnesota and Denver, which ended 27-34. The early game, people thought, oh yeah, things went pretty well for us. The second game, Cincinnati-Atlanta, 35-28. Everybody's like, oh yeah, that's great. We're probably going to be set, right? No. New England, and this is in the fourth quarter. By the end of it, final score, New England 49, Pittsburgh 45 for just, the most ridiculous lineup of all time. And this lineup actually wound up with 257-16. I see that's an old screenshot. What's missing? We're missing some Parker point? No. I don't know what's a little bit here, a little bit there, nothing important. Well, there's the 5 minutes on Sims. You didn't bargain for it. That wasn't the only one I won yesterday. I won a couple of others as well. The UFC, I'm gonna have like 360. I'm gonna have like maybe 400, 500 on the line by the time it gets to UFC day. So I did add a channel to talk about UFC in the Discord, but I am not a pro at that. That's like NHL for me, something I dabble in because it appears to have virtuous DFS properties. So I think you could be a pro at it. I see people who are generally good at it. Therefore, I think there is something to do besides no ball. Man, that was a tough one in NBA preseason last night, particularly Rin Pack. Thought that one looked pretty good, and then the last game was so silly. Also, some other games were pretty silly. Very frustrating overall day for me. But I always like it when you guys win, and when it seems like we have a virtuous victor, which we did. It was cool. And we almost got to 300. I really wanted us to get 300 sometime in the preseason here in basketball, but nobody's gotten there yet. Nobody's playing full games. So we do have a classic slate today in the MLB. Let's bring it back to the show. Thank you for listening to the ridiculous diatribes, etc. on the show. Please like, comment, subscribe. We have gotten to 10 likes a bunch of times this week. Thanks a lot. Although football crowd's beating you. So maybe I can stoke a rivalry and the baseball crowd start liking the videos a little bit more or something. But I'm not giving you much to work with, particularly for classics, so I understand if you wait a few minutes to the showdown part of the video to throw that like in there. These are bad pitchers pretty much across the board. Throw a dart. For me, the sentiment against Urquidy today is wrong. He's fine. These guys are all kind of bad. They could all hit, and that's about all you can say for all of them. Now, that said, my stance is going to be completely different on Showdown, right? I don't care. Toss a coin. All of these are equally decent pitchers, right? Like I would say, yes, this win probability 40 to 60% for all of them. Who knows? And that's about the chance they have a decent game that scores well in fantasy points. So fine, that's what you do. You toss a coin. I have no leans here. If you have a lean, my heart goes with Heaney, so I probably wind up with a little more Heaney than other ones. I've enjoyed his pitching for a while. He was on the Angels a long time ago, and I've been following him around. So probably I go with him. My heart doesn't like Suarez. I just don't like the way he pitches. So I might, and he's the highest price pitcher on the slate. So probably, yeah, I'm gonna lean into that. I got to go with, listen to my gut. But again, these, like I just told you, my brain knows it's a coin flip. My gut says, no, maybe we should make that a 45-55 coin. So gut's very much to be trusted here. I don't have any, by the way, I looked up the park factors just in case, that's been a big thing throughout the year, but we got like what? Nothing. They're both domes, so we can't talk about the park factors in a dome. Humidity might be a factor that gets inside the dome. So if you think there's a humidity effect that really is a -5 in globe life, fine. But like, they got a humidor in there, like, obviously. So I don't think there could possibly be a correlation with the outside weather, but it is always fun to look at. Okay, stack exposures just to see what SaberSim does. 5 threes. Yep, fine with that. Makes sense, right? You're going to try to. It's probably going to be optimal not to stack against the pitcher that you have chosen. Still, however, this 30% case involves one-off piece who is against your starting pitcher, right? By necessity of the slate. So that sounds about right. I didn't do any pool restriction today. I left them all in. So you can see here all the different options SaberSim's considered natively. I just don't know what it's a 2-game slate and it's like playoffs. So, and settings wise, I always let you guys know the settings I ran. I think about 1,000 is fine today, because what is important is the stacks. It's important you still be stacking because of a team scores 10. You know that still happens. Or if these games end 2-1, then we're going to be probably screwed, right? If the games end 2-1, maybe it's one of these 2-2-2-2s or 3-3-3-2s. But if one team scores 5 runs and all the other teams don't score runs, then it's going to be one of these stack lineups that wins. So that's happened like what? More than half the days of the playoffs that there have been classic slates. And I mean, just in general, more than half the games of the playoffs, even when we weren't able to do classic slates for a while. I was a little surprised we had a classic slate today. So to be honest with you, the machine's a bit rusty on classic, and I haven't checked. Yeah, I didn't even think to look for competitions because I just assumed it was the regular old showdown competition. So no idea what my actual exposures will be at today, or if I'm even playing this classic competition that begins at 2 p.m. I probably throw a couple darts just because you know me, I can't. Baseball owes me. That's the way I feel about it in terms of like I look at the cumulative distribution and like just like every single bin is over its expectation except the top one. And I don't believe that's anything but me getting unlucky in baseball. But you can have a different thought. Obviously, throughout the year, I've tried different strategies. Just feels unlucky. Don't really care at this point. I've had luck in the past, like, on my birthday, whatever. One of my first big hits was a few $100s on my birthday in 2018 in baseball. So I still like baseball, but no, it's been a frustrating year for me personally in baseball, but not overall. And that's why I have, so again, responsible gambling bit I always do. You should be playing with money that is fun money, and who cares? Because, don't care if I lose $5 on baseball today, guys. That's about the exposure I intend to have on these games. I have no idea going against Thursday Night Football. I imagine we got a real crap show of opportunity here. I think you could win a few $1,000s today at baseball, and a million of dollars at it's not like Monday where there was another high dollar millionaire or something. That's Sunday. I think there's a 4-4-4-4. Not for me. Didn't quite win that ticket. I do like these. I like the 11 to 4-4-4-4 satellites. I won, what was it? One of the Queen of the Court, right? That's the closest I've gotten to those. Well, I mean, aside from the tournament champions ticket. Well, this has been a very brighty little aside. All right. So captains for the first showdown are the pitchers, right? Yeah. So I should be getting to a ton of fat and a ton of, who's the other pitcher? Ranger Suarez. I'm not getting to enough of that. Yeah. Got to make sure. So these pitchers are pitchers, and the pitchers are under-owned because they are both bad pitchers. But they are pitchers. They are pitchers. The pitchers are the most likely people to score the most points. Anytime you have the pitchers and they're down here on a slate, not the highest owned, they are the best captain leverage. You should play the pitchers. They're bad. I agree. But if we get a pitcher's duel in this game and we play the pitcher's captain and we play the other one in the flex, that is the money thing to do today. It's impossible. It's so hard to jam them. They're extremely overpriced pitchers. But it is still the odds-on favored scenario for the game. It is a hard game to hit the ball. The ball is round, the bat is round. That is my overall thesis. So you can take that old school baseball talk for what it's worth. But generally speaking, that's the way I'm lining this up. I'll definitely be having at least 50% of my lineups be these two guys. And as you know, I will be very sad and complain on Twitter when it goes wrong. And that's what that fish stuff is, right? Don't get caught up in that kind of talk. Like, one of the key parts of all of the fish and shark debates, and a joke, I have Shark Tank chat and I do think it's fun and whatever as a classification. But sharks are fish. Like, that's part of the joke, guys. Sharks are fish. That's like if you look at their phylum or whatever, I don't like biology. I don't like classification. But in the what is a shark? Is it a mammal or a fish classification thing? A shark is a fish. And therefore, that's kind of, there's hope in that, right? So any fish can become a shark. That part doesn't quite work, does it? Okay, well, I'm not going to stretch the analogy any further at this time. We'll wait for shark. Hey, that's fun. I will. I think I can plug Shark Week. I'm going to do a DFS Shark Week next year in the middle of the summer. That's like along, the same idea as a different kind of shark, but not the same time or at all affiliated with or using hashtags that are branded or copyrighted. So I've got to double check all that. Let me say some names of non-pitchers. If you do not like to play Fat or Suarez in the first game because they're bad pitchers, which is a reasonable, and I do have only like half my lineups there. So for my other half of my lineups, that's a lot of Schwarber. No thanks. I'll take some Schwarber, but I mean, like, geez, 30%. It's not like I don't have that kind of lean. I might go down to 10% eventually, guys. I got to have him be much lower than the pitchers. I don't feel that strongly. I do like the Corbin Carroll play. So Corbin Carroll just like is getting the brunt of not being favored in the game, having the worst of the two pitchers, whatever it is. He has the lowest projection of a guy who's got a really high projection, lowest projected ownership of a guy who has high projected points. So high on Carroll, high on Gurriel, high on Bohm and Walker. And those guys are just low owned for their relative chance they hit that game, that like monster home run game. So that's what we're doing there. This is a sample 20. Again, I think this is going to be against Thursday Night Football, so I doubt I play more than a handful of these lineups. Oh, wait, no, this is the early one. If they have decent competitions at 2 o'clock, that's very interesting to me. I might play all 20. But it's probably... They nuke all the games the entire day. They have a big millionaire competition to make sure they fill the big millionaire competition because it's a big outlay, right? Like, if they get caught upside down a couple $100,000, they care. And anyway, so DraftKings has become very, what's the word when you avoid risks, right? And their risk avoidance has led to behaviors like they filled the League of Legends tournament too early last night, so I couldn't join it. And now tonight, it's half the size because of Thursday Night Football. This game, the League of Legends doesn't start till like midnight. It's like well after. Okay, anyway, I don't even like League of Legends that much. I'm kind of happy not to have lost the $30 or whatever I would have, but it's a nice time slot. Like, I wake up, I can I don't care if the kid wakes me up, I can watch some League of Legends replays on my phone at double speed. And that's about the way I can consume it. Okay, that's enough random aside about League of Legends. Although better random asides than sometimes. Okay, so next game, Houston and Texas. Same strategy. Again, we have two kind of bad pitchers. What's going on? Why are we not showing me the guys I actually have? Yeah, I don't understand sometimes, Saberson. But you should play the pitchers. Anytime the pitchers, okay, this can't be right. I just don't believe this is right. I don't believe there's a possibility, no matter how bad people think he is, that Jose Urquidy is going to be 2% owned on the slate. I think he's going to be 5% minimum. So I'm popping a 5 in there just because I can't have like my thing thinking it's so smart. By the way, oh yeah, in the settings, I did also. So what we're going with now in the shark zone here, aka me, I am now doing a really not like a light touch geometric mean ownership because I don't really care about being I want to get it to about 2 to 5 dupes in general with these kind of competitions to keep it over $1,000. And so I have says that less than 3 dupes and 5,500. These competitions are bigger. So what does that wind up being for about these size competitions? It's about 10. And then by doing salary restriction on top of that to 49.6 to 48,000, actually, to make this a meaningful other bound, we should probably make that 48.5. But that makes it so our expected dupes is not the full 10. It's actually half to a third that because of what we know about how people do not use all their salary. So that's our breakdown. Thanks again to whoever it was that wrote in yesterday. I really do appreciate it. You were 5th on our list of top 20 from Monday Night Football, so can go back and look at that later. All right. Okay, so that's settings. Now the people. Captains that I like besides Urquidy and who's the other guy? Heaney. So I like those guys, and we're jamming them. We're jamming both of them. I think either one of them is an easy jam. So 20%, let's do the same thing. Same plan as the other game. I want 50% of my lineups to be these guys. And if Urquidy is, lower owned, we might get to even more of him. That's fine. Actually, yeah. I'd take 20% of Heaney if it thinks it's better to get to 30% of Urquidy. Nope. I don't want to have that much Heim. Heim's fine. Okay, so the other guys, besides Heaney and Urquidy, 45, 50%, whatever, I make that decision later. Heim, Abreu, Bregman, Carter, and Alvarez. Guys who are under 5% ownership in the captain, who are definitely more than 5% to be the actual optimal captain. I probably peg them mostly around, 7 to 8 for these guys. The cases are batting second to fifth in the order should not be this low owned, right? That's where I'm building the case. They are in the power part of the order where they're likely to be people on base. So if anybody scores an RBI in the game and it's not a home run kind of game, it's still them, right? So I've ordered these guys by the home run thing, right? Initially to figure out who is most likely to hit a home run relative to their ownership in the captain. So, Abreu, Alvarez, Carter pop on that list, and then Bregman and Heim pop on the RBI list. So, I haven't done that specific thing, but you get the general idea that I'm looking for people who, when I sort by ownership, I do not agree with the ownership. That's the way to do it. That's the way to decide who should be your captains. If you want to be leverage on the field, you make them a captain. If you think, oh, okay, we're still pricing in 11% of Kyle Tucker getting there. Okay, y'all have him. I mean, that's too much for recent performance for me for Kyle Tucker, completely off the table. And then for the next two guys, it's just 9% is too high. I think 8% is around where they're at. I don't like negative leverage guys in the captain. Same thing with Seager, 8.5, 8.6, pretty much exactly right. You can include him if you're doing 150 or whatever, but for my 20, I don't think there's enough meat on the bone on Seager right now. He's still great. Double check the starting lineups, because I know some of you got messed up yesterday with McCormick, and who knows who's going to start. I mean, don't build your lineups. Don't build your lineups for Showdown until you have lineups. Right? For real, anytime these pop up over there, I used to be one of these guys, so I know people do it. Take a screenshot of part of the screen that's not on my screen, but is on your screen. Who cares? Don't these aren't my lineups. These are not going to use these lineups. I'm going to rerun the thing later with full information. Now, I'm not going to change tweaks like this. If SaberSim still thinks Urquidy's at 1.5% captain or whatever, I still think it's going to be more like 5. I don't think we have that many fish in the sea. I think there's enough sharks out there. We keep it up to 5% of the captain. And I know the plan, by the way, I should say, part of this is always playing the relief pitchers, so I should say that for the first game also. I didn't mention that. The bottom relief pitchers for the first game is the same 4 in play as yesterday. Ginkel, Mantiply, Hoffman, and Strom. And it's a lot more Houston guys than Texas guys in this game. That's why I bring it up and was bringing it up. We've got Abreu, Neres, Maton, Montero on top of Urquidy, who is also at the same. That's basically the problem. They're projecting, and I mean, this is probably true. He probably does. He's on a really short leash as the pitcher in this game. But being on a really short leash does not limit your upside as a pitcher. This guy's stretched out. It's not like he's on a short leash because he's limited to 60 pitches due to a shoulder injury he's still recovering from, right? I mean, I don't know. What's the ESPN, Jose Urquidy game log? I'm emphasizing the point about pitch count for those of you who are listening to the radio or the podcast version of this. I really got to start doing better for you guys. 82 pitches. He pitched 8 days ago and gave 82 pitches. Before that, we have 70. Before that, he got beat up a lot, right? That's what's going on here. 1.14, he's not guaranteed to go 100, but he's stretched out. That was my overall point here, and it is truth. So I don't get it. I don't get how you project him for 8. I mean, you project him for 8 because you're averaging 0 and 16, right? I mean, he gets to 16 if he does good. He gets to 0 if he does bad. That's not what we want to do for a projection, right? We care about the 16. We don't care about the 0. We know what happens with the 0. It happens to us 90% of the nights anyway, right? So probably what I'm going to have to do to get this to be appropriate is I am going to have to actually write in the 16. And I hate doing that. He's not a 16. You guys know what I mean. So I'm not going to do it all the way to 16, but for fat as well. Just for the showdown, I'm not doing this for the main slate, but to emphasize that these are still pitchers, and for real guys, we really have to emphasize that part of the distribution to SaberSim, who is trying to do a good job of accurately projecting for you. So they're going to sample that distribution correctly. And when you shift it this way, they're going to do what they do is so when they do it for projected runs, for example, they try to take a subset of the overall sims that have that projection. So if they can do it, if you put it kind of nearby, like here we have moved the mean a little bit, what they'll do probably is kick out the lower little bell or whatever, like he does bad, right? And so we just consider he does good. And then what we have to do when we say that is we have to set a hard limit because we know that it's not true. We know that what we're doing is picking out the sample where fat does well or whatever. So anyway, this is how we should do it, I think, for Showdown. And yeah, 25 to 25. That's a pretty, I'm sure that will not mess up SaberSim at all. But I also clicked into the wrong place. I was trying to talk about the Houston and Texas game. So let me round up my Urquidy and my other guy, because I really do think, like, for Showdowns, you need to emphasize the positive variance cases for the pitchers, because otherwise you're too weighed down by those negative games. But it's possible that I'm just picking out the part of the distribution that has the pitchers doing okay. And then I'm limiting my exposure to the pitchers in that circumstance. You have to think about, I don't think I can move it quite as far as I am on Heaney. I think I have to move it to more like 10 for it to be reasonable, because you don't want to completely unsample the lower bit, right? You're just trying to decrease the emphasis on it, because winning lineups aren't going to have that bell at all. I don't know. This doesn't feel like it's actual math, so I'm gonna cool it on this particular math portion of the the talk until I do the actual, like, some kind of math for it. By the way, I really like you guys writing in with new ideas and stuff. I'm not going to share them on the stream until I get your permission and stuff, but I really appreciate it. And anytime you're doing experiments and stuff, if you want to share the results with me, I love that. I love learning together. I've been debating making the Discord a community. I don't know what that feature does besides make it, like, visible on Discord groups, and I don't really want random children coming in, so I'm not really planning on doing that, but I do consider it a community. So thank you guys for joining up on the Discord. We've got Shark Chat. We've got a lot of fun. We'll do more stuff like Madden Sims any other time you guys want me to talk about some stupid stuff that, I don't know, man. It's really not that much interested. I can see only like 20 people watching these Madden Sims. It's going on right now. I'm not watching it, so that's like they've lost 5% of their audience, So, okay. So I mentioned all of the relief pitchers. Yeah, I think I said their names. I mentioned all the captains for the second game. I mentioned kind of a weird rule thing you can do with Urquidy and Heaney. Just to emphasize, you should still expect them to score the most points on the slate. You still should. Like, and because of the zero, and because of how quickly you get pulled, the actual expected value thing isn't doing that, right? And so that's just my personal thing. And yeah, I mean, it also makes it easy to watch the games, right? Like, I'll tune in at 2:00, and if it's 5-0 in the second inning, I'll tune out. You know what I mean? Like, if it's a good playoff game, I'll be watching anyway. So it dovetails well with my interest. I like it when things work like that, where, I'm not stuck watching. Like, that's the downside. So I'm really excited for Thursday Night Football. I'm linking to the video after this. You should definitely prep with the Thursday Night Football video, with the caveat that Jamal Williams is in it. It kind of changes the whole thing in terms of this. I don't remember what he's priced at, but I'll make a note about that when I tweet about it later. But the problem with Thursday Night Football is, even if I did win $1 million that way, I probably win it in a last second, like, the end of the game, some weird thing like, ooh, quarterback kneeled down -2 yards and I win by 0.1, $1 million. Has some story like that. It's very unlikely that a Haywood Highsmith type thing wins you a unique million, because he was still an okay play, and, like, people are going to be there. So it has to be something dumb that wins you the unique million, probably. And I mean, that's as somebody who's trying to do that every night. So I just feel like that must be how it feels to win a unique $1 million. You must feel like, oh crap, that worked out, awesome. Like, I did not expect that one to work out, because that's how it gets there. I don't know how generalizable that is, but yeah, I don't want to, having said that I'm not sharing something, I don't want to say anything that I've been thinking about that might have been cued by somebody sending me something fun in the chat that don't have permission to share. So I'm going to chill out on that, but I do think relative expectancy of wins is a very interesting thing to model. And if you have a good model of it and it's not under copyright, you should tell me about it, and we can learn and market that thing. Okie doke. Yeah, I've said everything I have to say about these baseball games. I want to go and start prepping my football lineup. So I'm going to do that. Remember, you're good enough, you're strong enough, and gosh darn it, somebody's got to win that money. I think it's probably only a few $1,000s on these baseball games, but it's $1 million at football. So let's all get a house tomorrow one way or another.